here's what I say about the running back position and about guys that I think that could be really, really good. I think they've got a really good coach. They got a coach coming in that is going to make a difference. Which, for me, that's the group that needs to make the biggest jump in 2022. But that's your topic, Justin. So I'm not going to step on you too bad. Why don't you go ahead and kick us off?
So that is my topic. Which position group needs to make the biggest jump in 2022? So when I came up with this question, I thought it would be a unanimous decision. It'd be like offensive line. Offensive line was so piss poor last year to start off the season. They were like one of the worst Power 5 offensive lines in the country. And they improved to like maybe to be like the 40th worst offensive line.
Right.
And then, and we're going to be losing our best offensive lineman, Cam Jurgens, at center.
Yeah.
And Matt Sichterman, which I think he probably has an argument to be made that he might have been our second best offensive lineman last year. You take those two guys out of there, I mean, it's going to be a huge challenge. And then for Casey Thompson didn't have a great offensive line at Texas. He struggled behind that. I mean, if we don't improve there, what makes you think that we can be successful again? The offensive line, that was a lot to attribute to why the running game didn't work. I mean, there's a shitload of reasons, and I want to hear your guys' thoughts. But Ken, since you're different, I want to ask you, Ken, elaborate on your running backs.
Well, I think the running backs need to make the biggest jump because I think they need to take a lot of pressure off the quarterback. I mean, we're going into an offense that we don't know what it's going to be. We don't know if Mark Whipple is going to completely rely on Casey Thompson to go get those 3 yards on third down like it seemed like we did with Martinez all the freaking time, which is why he was always dinged up. So for me, running back has to be productive. And I know I completely agree with you. I would have gone offensive line if it weren't for the fact that we've seen potential all up and down our running back roster. And it seems like every year, one or two of those guys that have potential are leaving, like Savion Morrison and Marvin Scott did this year. So for me, when you've got a position group that produced a total of 1,329 yards on 301 attempts at 4.41 yards per carry average, and your quarterbacks produced damn near half of that, if not a little over half of that, that's scary to me. I think we need the running backs to be better. And that, of course, is going to depend on what Raiola does with the offensive line, right?
Yeah.
So the best running back we had last year, obviously, yardage-wise, was Ramir Johnson, 495 yards. He averaged right at 4.4 yards per carry. He was second on the team in rushing behind Martinez. I guarantee you, in a Whipple offense, Casey Thompson is not going to likely be our leading rusher. So there's some dudes in that room that need to absolutely step up. I think Applewhite is definitely an upgrade at running back coach. I think he had his two running backs at TCU. In the 2 years he was there, they averaged over 7 yards per carry the 2 years he was there. And he's got that Ron Brown mentality, that get after it, get mean, don't mess around, attack the day every day. And he played fullback in college. So who knows? Maybe Whipple likes to run some I. So maybe you see Yant jump in there at an I formation, or maybe Whipple likes some of the stuff that Tim Beck did back in the day, and you see some of them talented running backs surrounding Casey Thompson in that diamond or triangle formation or whatever the hell that was pretty productive under Tim Beck. So and they really need to average about 200 yards per game at that position in order to take a lot of pressure off the passing game and keep a lot of that stuff out of Casey Thompson's face. And like you said, though, all starts up front. Yeah. But I think behind that offensive line, you've got to have some dudes that aren't afraid to stick their nose up in there and get it bloodied. So
Chris, how about you?
Which position group? I have to go with the offensive line because that's where everything starts. If we can have a good offensive line, our running backs are going to have holes to get to wherever they need to be. Casey Thompson's going to be able to pass with a clean pocket, and I think things will roll, smoothly with a very strong offensive line. I mean, just imagine having a 200-yard per game rusher You know what I mean? It would just change everything for Nebraska. I think, getting back to the roots of the '90s in a way. Getting like maybe kind of like the Ahmad Green or Lawrence Phillip days. Where they were
Stop
just
trying to go back to the '90s. Damn it!
trucking.
We need those.
All right,
I'll
go Mike Rozier then. He averaged 7.3 through his whole career. How about that?
Yeah.
Let's get into the 60s now.
Yeah.
Derek,
I just want to add into a little bit what you were talking about, Justin. Nebraska ranked 126 out of 130 teams in pass block when it comes to the PFF grades. Like our pass block was atrocious. It was terrible. The next worst team was Iowa, who was ranked 101st.
really?
Yeah. That is the Big Ten. That was the closest Big Ten team to us.
Okay.
I did not know that.
Good burn on Iowa.
I want to talk to Ken a little bit about. He was talking about Adrian Martinez leading the team in rushing again. Well, according to PFF, Adrian Martinez scrambled for 415 yards. Scrambled.
Yeah.
I mean, his offensive line wasn't doing their damn job. This had nothing to do with the offensive staff relying too much on Adrian Martinez. It had to do with the fact the offensive line wasn't blocking for him. He had to make something out of nothing. He had 525 total rushing yards. He had 525 total rushing yards. 415 of them came on scrambles.
And if our offensive line didn't suck so bad, he wouldn't have all those yards.
Nope.
You're right.
Probably would have.
But he also probably has more passing yards. He probably looks better overall. I mean, it was just the offensive line also accounted for 27 of the 37 offensive penalties that we had. And Tyler, you roll your eyes, but how many of those were drive killers? How many times did we get a holding call, and all of a sudden you could just about punt it away because we ain't going anywhere after that?
Well, Dirk, I don't disagree with you. You're right that they were killers. I rolled my eyes because I think, well, who else is going to commit offensive penalties? Like false starts are holdings are offensive line. I mean, most offensive penalties are offensive line. I feel like that's the quarter. How many offensive penalties do you see on a quarterback? Not many.
Probably more than we should have with intentional groundings in the end zones.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Oh,
those hurt. Anybody else got anything on that topic? I think everybody else is probably going to be offensive line, right?
Well, I mean, I went a little bit against the grain, but it is still a tie in my idea of position group that needs to make the biggest jump. And I had a tie between special teams and offensive line because both of those position groups will need a shit ton of work. But if I were to pick between the two, which one I'm more confident in changing, it would be special teams taking a jump with a historically proven Bill Bush taking the first special teams coordinator position in the Frost era, whoop-de-doo, and less confident in the unproven Donovan Raiola taking over our offensive line. Reason why I think special teams is probably where I lean a little bit more towards is just because of how many points we left on the field that just didn't result in victories. If we would have been able to just be even slightly better at our punting, we would have won against Michigan State. If we would have been better at kicking field goals, we would have won a couple other games. Like just those tiny little minute details, I think go a long way. Would I rather see our offensive line improve? Like if I had to pick between, both staying stagnant, like if special teams stayed the exact same way and offensive line made a huge jump, I would pick offensive line because I think we can work a little bit with that. But I'm picking strictly off of what group could make the most improvement. And I think special teams does, especially with Montana transfer punter Brian Buschini, which I think it's kind of cute that we've got Brian Busch-ini with Bill Bush. So, they're the Bush brothers. They need some Bush lights on the field at all times.
We've got Bush.
I was just going to say.
I want that shirt.
I gotta say, you just hit on one of my biggest pet peeves in the world, and the Cousins know this. And if you listen to the Cuzcast, you know this is by saying we finally have a special teams coach. We've had special teams coaches. By him not being a solo guy doesn't mean we haven't had them. And if you say, well, that doesn't count, well, then Alabama, Penn State, Michigan, Illinois, FSU, Clemson, Auburn, none of them have special teams coaches. And it's not
we
like
didn't have one in 2020, Tyler.
We had 1 year we didn't have one. And it's not like people this year are going to say, well, why don't you have a quarterback coach? I mean, you have an offensive coordinator / quarterback coach. I mean, people do dual duties all the time in college football. That pet peeve of mine, like,
I know.
Ever hired a special teams coach?
And my pushback for that is, as you like try and navigate through life, if there's an area where you struggle precipitously, you have to get a specialist in that area. Like, if you struggle immensely on special teams, you have to make an immense effort to change that area. Yes, there are other teams that have dual purpose coaches that do a multiplicity of responsibilities, but it's because for whatever reason at that time, the framework that they're working with is working. And so they can afford to get those dual duties. And this is the first special teams solo coordinator that we've had with Frost. And that alone for me, I think is important, because we have struggled so poorly on special teams that we needed to actually set aside one area for one guy to do one job that hasn't been done.
And I'll agree
that hasn't been completed.
I will agree with you there, right? I think that is a very valid point. Like the fact that he is emphasizing this enough to say, we have one guy that's the only thing I want you to do, Bill Bush, is make us not suck ass at special teams. Please just don't make us lose games because of this.
I think it'll change.
I do think that matters.
I think it will change. Like, if let's say we start to get really successful on special teams, or at least get somewhere in the middle of the pack, I very well could see some more reorganizing of the coaching staff, where we can take a responsibility and put it on Bill Bush's plate, or remove a responsibility from someone else. I don't know. But right now, I think the primary focus that we need to have is have one guy look at a whiteboard and only have one topic that he needs to focus on, so that our guys can get focused in on one thing and one thing alone from one guy. You know, just like that alone for me is important. Could have we done without it? Sure. But you know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And so we've got to do something to break against that grain. And I think that Bill Bush could help us. We don't know, but I think he has a good potential to do so. And I know we've had good special teams recruits in the past that haven't panned out, but I mean, this could be the same thing with the Montana punter and the Furman kicker. Timmy, I like his name, Timmy. Timmy.
Big Road. BLEEKRODE. That's a weird ass name. Hope he can kick a football.
Yep. So that's just
won't
my
be, culpable in any losses, maybe.
Culpable. Oh, speaking of special team stuff, I got a pair of shoes from Lane McCollum. So that's kind of cool. I got a pair of Adidas high tops from him. The guy who kicked the game-winning field goal against Northwestern.
Wasn't it? 2019?
Yeah, that got blocked, but it still went through.
How'd you get those?
He was selling them on Facebook. He was selling them on Facebook. He was selling a bunch of merchandise post-graduation, and I freaking love Adidas high tops. I gotta flex these for a moment. Check out these fucking bad boys. Look at them.
Dude.
Hey, the team might suck, but at least they had cool looking kicks.
Yeah. So I dropped a little bit more money than I would have wanted to, but
are you gonna wear them?
Oh yeah. I'll wear them once, at least once.
And he's probably gonna come on our podcast somewhere between.
Yes.
Lane
McCollum is actually going to probably. He said he's down for it, so
see if we can dig into some of the culture or whatnot in the program. I mean, I don't want to betray any kind of locker room, brotherhood and that kind of stuff. But
unspoken rules.
Anyway,
hey, add me in on the post-show conversation.
Okay, yeah, we can do that.
Very
we might just include you on the whole show conversation. How's that sound?
Awesome.